Hey, I'm Noah Faye, welcome to Florida Focus, the latest show from Florida Family Voice. We are doing a series of videos where we are breaking down the amendments that are going to be on your 2024 general election ballot. And today we are starting with Amendment 1. Joining me today is Aaron DiPietro. Aaron, how's it going?
Doing great.
Doing
I'm
good.
excited to break this down for us.
Yeah, so we're starting with Amendment 1.
Amendment 1. Let's read the summary for us, and then we'll break it down.
I came
This is going
prepared.
to be the ballot summary that will be on the ballot that each and every one of you in Florida that are voters will get to see and vote on in November.
And bear with my fourth grade reading level. Here we go. All right. Proposing amendments to the state constitution to require members of a district school board to be elected in a partisan election rather than a nonpartisan election, and to specify that the amendment only applies to elections held on or after the November 2026 general election. However, partisan primary elections may occur before the 2026 general election for purposes of nominating political party candidates to that office for placement on the 2026 general election ballot. Ooh. All right.
That's a mouthful. Let's break it down a little bit here. So, in short, historically here in Florida for the indefinite past, school board elections. So, school board elections have traditionally been nonpartisan. So you have nonpartisan elections and you have partisan elections. So partisan elections, which we have for president, we have for Senate, we have for state house and state Senate, and some local races as well, like mayor, county commissioner, to where you have all candidates run with a party affiliation behind them, whether it's Republican, Democrat, NPA, Libertarian, Constitution Party, Tea Party, etc., Green Party, whatever. School board races are right now one of the few exceptions. There's a few other races in some local municipalities that differ on this, but school board races are the one race that is consistent across the board in the entire state of Florida, that they are all nonpartisan. You sometimes see the three-letter designation NOP, that stands for nonpartisan. And that's how they run. That's how they run on the ballot. So interestingly, so there's a debate on whether or not right now this constitutional amendment is seeking to turn all of those school board nonpartisan races into partisan races, so that all these candidates will be running on a ballot with a party designation, whether it's Republican, Democrat, NPA, etc. They'll be running in party primaries that are exclusive to registered party voters. So like the Republican Party primary will be for only Republican voters, Democrat Party for only Democrats, and so on and so forth. So non-NPA voters and practically speaking, most third-party candidate or voters will be eliminated from voting in the primaries for school board candidates.
Now, I have a question.
Yes.
Why did the school board district races get an exemption, essentially, or get left out of being partisan in the first place?
It's kind of a long-standing tradition, I think, and I think in the beginning, like the common phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think there was good intentions of seeking to separate the setting the future of our children, their education, pulling that away from maybe some of the partisanship that has been so dominant in much of our politics. And again, this goes back decades in terms of the standards. So I think there was good intentions in the beginning but the problem is, as we've acknowledged, and I think proponents and opponents of this there's a lot of debate on this, but I think a lot of people, we need to realize partisanship and ideology has completely come into the school board arena. Like there's I don't care if you have a nonpartisan race or a title behind your name, you are
if you're putting
partisan. You're
tampons in a boy's bathroom.
Right, exactly. So what this amendment is seeking to do is make basically where every single race across the state of Florida is partisan. Now, there's pros and cons on this. At Florida Family Voice, we have not made an endorsement one way or the other. So we're recommending to our supporters and those following us that do your own research and decide what you think is best on this amendment. So there are pros and cons on both sides. The proponents of this amendment maintain that putting partisan labels on individuals will highlight some of the potential ideologies that these candidates hold and basically further inform voters. There's been a lot of cases in multiple races, and I can testify this to having been involved in local races in the past and school board races, that there's some partisan voters that leave school board races blank because they don't see a party identifier behind them. So therefore, they sometimes will just not vote, and they'll abdicate their duty to vote in those races. So some people say it'll increase voter participation in school board races. Some people say it will highlight the potential ideological leans, because again, not every Republican or Democrat fully adheres to their party platform or the full structure, but they maintain it. It's a way to serve as an identifier for those candidates and help inform and educate the public at large. The opponents, so there's kind of maybe two camps of opponents. There's some that, and I personally think this argument is weak against it. I think the other argument I'll mention next, I think, could carry some validity and is worth considering. There's some, these are primarily from maybe the more liberal activists. They'll say that partisan politics doesn't belong in school board elections, and therefore we need to keep partisan politics out of it. Well, they're a little bit late to the game. Every single political school board member, it has a political ideology or worldview that he or she is, pursuing and promoting, and is the lens through which they're viewing every decision they're making, whether it's to allow men and women's restrooms or not, whether it's to allow girls on boys sports or girls and boys on each other's sports teams, whether it's allowing gender ideology to be allowed into elementary schools, so on and so forth. So that argument I don't think bears much support. The other argument, though, against maybe, and there's some liberal opponents of this and conservative opponents of this amendment that have brought this up, to say that it's really a short-term fix. Because first of all, you could have say you have a red area of the state. It's a Republican-leaning area of the state. You've got a Democrat that moves into the district, and they want to run for school board. They know they can't win in a partisan election as a Democrat, so they'll just switch parties. Their ideology doesn't change. They're just they're still the same ideology. They switch parties, and vice versa in more Democrat-leaning areas. So some people will say it will affect the ability of for instance, if you have a conservative Christian running in a more, I guess you could say, more blue-leaning seat, and he or she is running as with a Republican identifier after them, or if they're running as a Democrat in a more red-leaning municipality, it will destroy their ability to be competitive in that particular race. So I think there's arguments in both support and opposition that are worth considering for the voters.
Well, it seems like it almost leaves it as a neutral thing when, let's say, it passes, and you have to do your research into the candidate to make sure they're not a Republican in name only or whatever. Then you're still going to have to do your research. If it doesn't pass, you should still be doing your research on the candidate.
I think the bottom line, I think it's an excellent point. Research, we need to be doing our research.
Don't just look for the letter by the name.
Exactly, because you and I know, like an R and a D it can mean different things in different parts of the state. Right. So you all have to, voters have to do, you and I and all the voters should do our own research and, go from there and make our decision on that.
Is Florida Family Voice going to be doing research into school board district races?
Long-term, a long-term vision is that we definitely want to engage on the local level, but again, not on the basis of party, but on the basis of ideology, or those that are standing for, the innocence of children and opposing the sexualization of kids, those that are standing for protecting religious freedom and protecting, the freedom of speech of teachers and school administrators who choose not to go along with the pronoun, game. So we definitely want to engage in that area in the future.
Which is why I think it's so important for people to get behind Florida Family Voice, because it takes a lot of resources to start vetting every school board district and the candidates running. And, kind of this thing that people don't do the research is because they don't have time. Yeah. I can't research judges and I can't research school board district races.
Yeah, a lot of people say that, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like sometimes you look for someone like Florida Family Voice to have the values you share to done the vetting for you. Yeah. So I think that's an exciting thing to look forward to coming up.
Definitely. Awesome. And our partners over at Florida Family Action as well, who do a lot of the vetting. So I'm excited about that. But thank you guys so much. Amendment 1, do your research on this amendment and do your research whether this amendment passes or fails on the school board candidates, because it's the future of our children. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thanks, guys.